So the third one is about the affective. So we talk about behaviors, we talk about the cognitive. This is the third one I would also mention is functional approach. There are 2, 3, these are more or less, we still see, that's why I want to bring it to you. This is more like a method, it's not an approach. Cognitive teaching is an approach because there are many, many methods in there. Here is more a single method. TPR. Do you all know TPR, total physical response? Okay, then I'm not going to go over. It's teacher says something, student carry out a command. Total physical response storytelling is a little bit more extended than the total physical response because it uses story by giving movement or commands to tell a story. The good part of it is language is used repeatedly and then used through movement, and there are stories to build understanding, so that's a functional approach. Natural approach, immediate cognitive competence, more affective. So these are more towards, like whatever language is acquired naturally, we need to do it that way, meaning to let students feel better in a less stressful environment. So one of the one that nobody uses now, but it's in the book that you will see. It's called Suggestopedia. What it means is more for adult learner. Adult learner that you play slow music, you provide them a glass of wine, okay, and you sit in a comfortable chair. They learn language very fast. Okay, try it that way. Okay. I'm going to skip this because we can do a lot of discussion. Okay, so move on to introduce about the research. We say research inform us about the instruction. So I'm going to put 2 research for you. One is the input research, the other is output research. Take a look at this. This is a research done surveying 13 language classes. And that's during the second quarter of semester. So that means around, they have learned about 3 months language already. Now in 1 hour instruction, these researchers go in and then do an observation, and they found out the target language used in the classroom ranges from 10% to 100%. So the average mean is somehow is 79% of target language use. Okay. This just to show you that not every language classroom that teachers using target language. Some use very, very, very little target language. Some teachers will use more. But we say in the StarTalk program, we aim for 90% plus. Okay, take a look at the output. What about students? So this researcher went to a class, 2 classes, and followed student 1, student 2, student 3. And we want to just record how much language the student 1, 2, 3 use individually in the classroom. So they measured, in this class, the teacher taught that many words. Student used that many words. And therefore, the output, if we put a percentage, student 1 in class 1 uses 13% of the words of the target language, 8% target language. Student 2 is 5 and 3. That means the student 2 talk very, very, very little. Student 3, 5% and 4%. Very, very little. If we teach language, and if we only allow students to produce 3% of the total words or language that used, do you think your student can use the language? Do you think your student become a fluent language speaker? I doubt it. 4, 5, 3, 5 is really, really almost like the student is not saying anything. Even 13 is not. Even if you put 31, it's still not enough. We want to really jack up this number really, really high. Oftentimes, I ask the teacher to do this is in a real instruction in the classroom. Just take yourself and listen. Who speaks more? Is you than student, then you need to cut down your time and give more time and more activity for your students to do. So every time we look at the research, we get some information from the research and we understand where's the area we need to strengthen. And this clearly tells you student output is not enough. All right, fun activity. I'm going to put this up here and you just discuss. I want to ask you, how is language acquired? Is it through teacher repeat, student copy, student study grammar? There's so many things there. Okay, all right. I must admit that I'm giving you, I must admit, I'm setting you up. 我给你一个很大的陷阱。Because all of this on the board is nothing to do with language acquisition. And I will explain to you why, particularly the next sentence. What is language acquisition? I'm going to really use Stephen Krashen's theory to explain. So after it's explained it, you go back to the slide and you will tell me. Okay, Stephen Krashen, there are 5 important hypotheses in language learning, talking about how human beings learn language. Okay. The first one he said was language acquisition versus language learning. 2 are different. Acquisition is naturally acquired, like a child learning first language. Learning is a structured learning in a setting like a classroom. Both are learning, but it's different. That's why I want to let you know. Both are learning. Both can learn language. One is naturally acquired, the other is structurally learned. So when it's naturally acquired, think of a child. The language is a subconscious process, correct? Kids don't need to, think about, I have to put the subject first, I have to put the verb second, I have to put the object third. Do they think it that way, little kid? Naturally. When you learn Chinese, do you have to say, 主宾东, do you think it that way? No. You just very naturally, you acquire language. Subconscious. It's a subconscious kind of process. And language acquisition is a communicative act. There is a communication going on. So if we understand that language acquisition, then we know that language acquisition is not an artificial type of kind of forced learning. It's not. It's not a conscious effort to go through the language process. That will not be called language acquisition. So if we understand that, we know that acquisition 很自然的习得 ，OK， 语言是可以习得的，跟语言的学习 it's different, OK. So we understand that we need to separate these two, and we need to create a setting that is more like helping students to naturally acquire, less artificially teach them how to learn language. That's what it means. Okay? So after Krashen's hypothesis came out, people are studying how first language is acquired. Then we follow how first language is acquired and parallel, because we know that's a natural process. But if you artificially say, you do this, you learn this, you learn this, there's no parallel between the first and second language acquisition. And then we go on to monitoring systems. Krashen says that in our head, we have a mechanism that constantly monitoring our language. That's why you know, 哎呀，我错，我说错了，我的跟他的不一样. That is your head has a monitoring system and telling you, what I said just now was wrong. 所以这样的这个monitoring system 呢，特别在第二外语学习呢，非常的显著。Because when we learn the second language, we always have to think whether we're saying it right, wrong? How do we say it? Is it appropriate? We constantly monitor it. Of course, there are individual differences because we as language teachers maybe we're more sensitive to this kind of monitoring system going on in our system. Whereas maybe someone else, they have less. But the monitoring system happens. That's why you can correct your own mistakes. Or that's why you can say, maybe I have to think another way of saying it. 这个都是 monitoring system 在 helping you to think what is the right way to say. 所以不管是 little kid, middle age, older age, 他在脑海里头都有一个 monitoring system. 这个是 question 的一个说法。Okay, then another one. Question also says about the natural order hypothesis. He talked about that learners, regardless of age, okay, 所以你讲的 little kid, 高中 regardless of age, regardless of the background, educational background, cultural background, if this person is learning a language, that's a second language, in this head, there's usually a natural order. Something learns earlier than the something else. So something learns last, something learns later, something learns earlier. There's a kind of sequence in the head, very naturally. It happens. When he talked about this hypothesis, there's research to prove, because he studied learners of English from Switzerland, from France, from Japan, from China. Found out that when they learn English, there's always certain features of English they acquire earlier or faster than the other features. For example, maybe present tense with an S is learned earlier, and then the participle learned much later. So there's a natural sequence. It happens in the head. Okay, then another one is important. It's the input hypothesis. Kreshn talked about how language is acquired. He says one thing. He said, language is acquired only when the input is comprehensible. If I give you something, if you don't understand, that is no acquisition going on at all. When my words getting into your head, you understand me, and it becomes you can process it, then the acquisition takes place. So in his hypothesis, the comprehensible input is the most important element. It's the only way that language can be acquired. It's not through drill. It's not through making sentences. It's not through study vocabulary. Because those will never guarantee a student to really use the language. But student will be able to use the language. The output comes. It's because you have comprehensible input given to them, and they will have become their intake, and they become comprehensible output. That's the process. So we have to really understand that comprehensible input is the bottom line of language acquisition. And therefore, next Monday, I'm going to spend a whole morning talking about comprehensible input, how to give that, how to really develop that skills, and how to design activities. Because without comprehensible input, don't expect students to be able to acquire language. That is the most important point of input hypothesis. Then he also talked about input hypothesis about I+1. How do we help students to grow? The language, remember, it needs to grow from unknown to known. How do you grow? It's through I+1. Input +1. Input is the student's level. If you give students something slightly above student's level, students learn the best. And that I'm going to have a detailed explanation, so I'm not going to go over now. But all these are talking about input hypothesis and talk about comprehensible input. So I will go over this with actual demo on Monday. Affective filter. Well, Christian understands the learner. And he talked about when learning takes place and most effective is when the affective filter is very, very low. Meaning, if you make students very nervous or raise their affective filter, they become very anxious, very nervous, very tense. Whoop, the filter goes up, they block the cognitive process. They will not be able to learn. Now, think of many of your situations. If you come up to the stage and you have to do a performance, you will feel very tense, right? At least you feel it's not as comfortable as sitting here. So which way would you feel more comfortable speaking? From your chair comfortably or up here standing and then deliver a speech? Which one? You all agree, sitting in the chair more comfortable. This is what it means. He wants a learner to learn in a very relaxed situation. Material can be interesting and very relaxed and nothing stressful. So we as teacher, what does this tell us? What is Stephen Krashen's message to tell you? We as a teacher, we better not what? We better not give students very stressful situation. If the stress level is low, they learn better. Remember I mentioned that in the adult learning suggestopedia. What do? They listen to borrowed music, slow music. Actually, do that too in your classroom. Put some music in the background. I've seen teachers put very beautiful Chinese music, flute, harp, guzheng, play in the background and let them listen. And they feel very good. They feel relaxed, and the learning is more effective in the learning situation because the students are much calmer and less anxious about the learning. So these are the 5 hypotheses that Stephen Krashen mentioned about language acquisition. Now, his hypothesis had great influence in the language teaching today. And StarTalk has that one principle is coming from him, the comprehensible input. Okay, so how do we apply hypothesis in the teaching? Particularly the comprehensible input. If we understand Krashen, if we understand that his input hypothesis makes sense, then we will do this. What do? We will provide our instruction 90% of the time in the target language, but comprehensible. It's not that I'm going to speak all Chinese, but students don't know what I'm talking about. That's not comprehensible. Comprehensible means students need to understand, because without understanding, there's no learning. So that's number 1. All right, 10% of the instruction can be in students' mother tongue, let's say in English. So what do you use that 10% for? You can use the 10% to explain maybe some grammatical feature that is not existing in the language, or maybe something that is very, very difficult to demonstrate in using all kinds of strategy. You couldn't explain something in the target language, then that's okay to use that, put that in the 10%. Or some procedure, for instance, you want to give students a project to do. And then that project, you need to explain clearly, okay, use English. That's fine, because that's not instructional language. That's okay. So we know when we use English, there's a specific purpose, or my intention is for some kind of administrative kind of purpose. It is fine. But other than that, you need to really keep everything in the target language. But you have to think how to make that input comprehensible. Okay. So in order to make comprehensible input, we use teacher. We use a lot of visual, we use gestures, expressions, facial expressions, movements. We use signs. We use different kind of props to help students understand what you want to teach. And we need to keep in mind, comprehensible input needs to be simple and direct. Don't give them long sentences. Simple, direct, and repeated, and frequent. So constantly giving them similar thing for them to understand. If it's too long, too much, it will be hard for them to understand. Break down directions. It's the same idea. Break down this direction so that it's not long. The good direction usually is first, do this, second, do this, third, do this, very, very clear in a nice order. Present smaller segments of new information. So, if you want to give comprehensible input, the new information should not be overwhelming students. Once you overwhelm students, affect filter will go up and will block the information. So all of these come together and you understand the language acquisition that Stephen's question is talking about. Lots of modeling. Hey, we know that. Use target language in the classroom management system, meaning oftentimes the classroom management, the routines or language that you use, we can completely use the target language. For instance, you say, you line up, go to the bathroom, lunchtime, take a break, dismissal, all these things that use the target language because it happens every day and students will be able to listen and understand what to do. Use target language consistently. It's not that, okay, I'm going to use target language and then English and then hopping around. We don't hop around. We have to be consistent. Okay. Now, the very interesting thing is this. In this research field, if a scholar says there is something called input hypothesis, there's another scholar will say, hey, there's also output hypothesis. So input hypothesis is one, then the output hypothesis is another one. Because this output hypothesis was saying, input is you, teacher, giving to the students. What about students? They have to give it to the teacher. So that's called output hypothesis. And I have to understand the student's output. So what does this output hypothesis is telling us? Mainly it was saying, understanding the learner. What they can say and what they want to say has a gap. Agree? Maybe the student wants to say a lot, but then only has this limited pool of available words to say. So whatever they want to say and whatever they can't say, there's a gap. So the output hypothesis wants teacher to know and understand that there is a gap that exists between what student can say and be able to say. And also it mentioned about learner has rules they are in the head. Remember question says that internalize the rule, right? So the output hypothesis piggyback on that and say, learner try out new rules and modify them according to their competence. They constantly try out their rules. Not that they don't have, but they constantly try out. And so that they can see what they can do. Because what they can do, what they want to do is the gap. But they use the rule they already have to try out. And learner actively reflect on what they know about the target language system. They're constantly thinking about the language system. Okay, if we understand that hypothesis, how do we apply that in teaching? We have to think about, there's a research talking about output. So we as teachers, we know we need to learn how to do the help the student to produce the output. Let's see it. We as a teacher, we need to create so-called safe environment for students to use target language. What do we mean by safe? What do you think the safe refer to? What is a safe environment? If I say, you need to create a safe environment, or if your department chair comes to you and says, are you creating safe environment for your students? What does it mean? What does it mean by creating a safe environment?
Encourage taking risks.
Yes, exactly. Encourage students to take risks and not fear of failure. That's what it means. Think of when you are learning a language, what are you afraid of? Yes, we are afraid of making mistakes. And if you have a very mean teacher, every time you open your mouth and you make a mistake, and your teacher come to you and say, why did you make a mistake? That will discourage you. You will not open, right? You will not open your mouth. So we need to be very, very conscious about how we treat our students. I tell you, I have my friends' children, they're all grown up. And this summer, I have a young woman who studied at the Wellesley College. Before she went back to Italy, her family's from Taiwan, but her home is in Italy. She stayed with me because the school closed. And she's a very quiet person. And her mother also came from Italy to pick her up. And so we're talking about educational field, all kinds of educational things. She graduated from a very, very good college. Of course, college is Wellesley. High school is also very, very well-known high school in Washington, D.C. And we're talking about when she graduates, she needs to go into the society and really follow her career. And one thing I noticed, this young lady is very, very quiet. So I talked to her mother. I said, well, in this country, you really need to sell yourself, right? If whatever you have to show confidence, So you know what? Mother shared a story with me. Said when she was in the kindergarten, first grade in Washington, D.C., she was very talkative, she was very active, participated in everything because she was grown up, educated in this country. So that's the way that teacher want to cultivate students' confidence and all. Then after the first grade, she moved to Taiwan, second grade, and studied. Every time the teacher says something, she has something to say. And the teacher was so mad at her. Why is this kid so talkative? She needs to be quiet. She's not allowed to talk in the classroom. And from then on, she was so totally devastated and discouraged. And mother said she dare not open her mouth because whenever she opened her mouth, she would think of her second grade teacher. She would think about very traumatic experience. So she became very quiet and she would not participate in the classroom. So we talked about how education is really sometimes, when it's good, it really develops a person's potential and all. But when it's not done right, it really hurts, damages a person. So I think we as teachers, we have so much responsibilities. We have really great responsibility in us cultivate students. This is why I said safe environment, meaning you encourage the student. Don't let them be afraid of making mistakes. Let them open-ended question, has no right or wrong answer. That's the best way. What do you think? You can have your own way of thinking. You can have your way of thinking. Nothing is right or wrong. So you do not discourage students. And that way, your student will feel it's safe to speak in the classroom. Otherwise, your student will be like my friend's daughter, forever mouth shut, and so afraid to speak, so afraid. And it was really, I feel so sad. Oh my God, the educational system, one teacher in effect, so much. So this is what I mean. I want you to really understand the theory, understand how to apply it, not just understand the words, but knowing how to really do it is important. Right? Safe environment, very important. Then we as a teacher, we track student output because constantly, I think in the morning we're talking about how do we conduct performance assessment. We always do performance assessment. How do we do that? We as teachers constantly checking for understanding. Constantly, my eyes need to really sweep from this end, this end, that end, sweeping back and forth. My eyes need to be really sharp on knowing whoever's doing what. Knowing if this person is daydreaming, that person thinking boyfriend, that person thinking what they're gonna cook for tonight, that person saying, oh my God. You really have to be very, very sharp on what's going on in the classroom by constantly checking. So trace, you really have to follow every student where they are. And that's also influenced by the output, because you always have to check whether the students are really doing what they can do and what they want to do, is getting the gap is closer. Encourage students various ways to indicate their comprehension of target language. Discourage the use of English. Discourage, okay? Because that goes back to translation method. Okay, so so there is an input hypothesis. There is an output hypothesis. There's a smart guy coming up with the interaction hypothesis. So he said, wait a minute, input is important, output is important, but interaction is also important. So Michael Long was saying interactive hypothesis. So he proposed the interactive hypothesis. He said two people interact. Conversation needs to take two people, two persons. So what are these two people doing? He said the two people, when they're conducting a conversation, they are talking, conversing. They constantly modify structure. They constantly modify the interaction structure. For instance, maybe my level is slightly lower than her level. Then I have to really help myself to speak whatever that I can bring up to her level. Or she probably is going down a little bit so I can understand her. We're constantly monitoring the structure. We're constantly negotiating the meaning, clarification, understanding each other. We are doing this. And in these things we know, we take for granted. We say, of course interaction is like this. But it takes a scholar to tell you the hypothesis so that we can use in the classroom. So the scholar will tell you, communicators constantly check for understanding, constantly negotiation of meaning, constantly avoid communication breakdown, and constantly achieve mutual understanding. Yes, we say yes, of course, we all know that. All right, so we know that. What do? You are the teacher, your students are learning the language. So let's do this. Well, teacher will respond to students in the target language. Teacher will help rephrase. This we do too. For instance, you don't understand something, I'm going to use a simpler way of telling you. Teacher model for the correct form. Teacher provide feedback. Teacher allows students to practice. And teacher return to student and check for understanding. I would guarantee you all do this. Is there anybody here who said, no, I'm not doing it? I don't believe that. Everybody here, sitting here, doing this. Because you want students to give you output. Because you want to continue to carry a conversation. So, understanding three very, I would say, major language acquisition hypotheses: input, output, interaction, and we understand how to do input, output, interaction, okay? Understanding that, helping you to understand in the general term of language teaching and learning. How teacher teach, how student learn. Otherwise, it's all like, oh, I think that's the right way. I don't want you to think it's the right way. I want you to know it's the right way, because this foundation of some kind of knowledge informs you. Hey, all right. Comprehensible input, I'll go over very quickly. These are some of the comprehensible input that I'm going to go over in detail on Monday, but I would say to use comprehensible input, we can have these kind of strategies, or we need to develop activities in these areas and turn the activity into strategy. We need to use visuals, objects, gestures, body language, facial expression, movement, pantomime, signs, and symbols. We'll go over this Monday, so I'm going to skip over. Okay. Then, that will wrap up all the language theories and practice that up until now, pretty current, so you didn't miss anything. And you know how languages evolved from 200 years to today. You didn't miss a skip. All right, in the field, education. there are a couple of important, again, practices I want to share with you. This is one, multiple intelligence. Can you tell me who came up with multiple intelligences? Gardner. Okay, Howard Gardner. So in the beginning, when Howard Gardner was presenting this multiple intelligences, he talked about 7 multiple intelligences up to here, and then added 2 more. Take a look. So he was saying every person is either stronger or a little bit weaker in one of these intelligences. Musical, rhythmic, visual, spatial, verbal, linguistic, logical, mathematical, bodily, kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, naturalist, existential, and spiritual. Is there any one of them that you do not understand? I'll explain. Anything that is here that you say, explain to me what this is. Take a quick look.
Maybe the last two.
The last 2, naturalists. Do you know Jane Goodman? Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall. Tell me, who is Jane Goodall?
Chimpanzee.
Yes, chimpanzee. From when did she start in chimpanzee?
70s or 80s?
When she was very young. When she was like your age. Beautiful, young. How old is she now? Older than I. Still research chimpanzee. Amazing person. All her life, she wanted to be with chimpanzee, study chimpanzee. Everything for her is involved in the study of chimpanzee. Naturalist. She is all into nature, all into animal, all into the world, all into the globe. That's naturalist. There are some people naturally with that kind of innate kind of ability, innate kind of tendency, is drawn to nature, who studies environment, who studies how to make environment more friendly to human, how to create a harmonic world that people can coexist together. Naturalists. Okay, anything else? So, interperson, intraperson, 内向外向. Interperson will be very, very comfortable in a group of situation. Intra will be like my friend's daughter, Wells' daughter, intra. 她变成 very, very intra. 很内向。